I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea where this video is going to go. Sometimes I have what I think is like this grandeur idea, this wonderful idea to talk about collecting Pokemon cards and this fun hobby that we're all in. And I go into the lab and I start dissecting all of this information and pulling data left and right. And I don't even know what conclusion I'm trying to get to. I'm just trying to provide good information. So I'm all over the place trying to put stuff together and throwing it together in a slideshow. And then I sit down, and this happens not often, but it happened with today's video. And I'm like, I don't know how this video is going to go. I don't know what I am trying to get across. There is going to be really good information in this video. But it's not meant to complain. It's not meant to frustrate anybody. It's not meant to be frustrated. It's just, this is the situation that we are in now. This is how Pokemon cards have evolved throughout the years. And 27 years ago, when Pokemon cards first came out, we had people who were out collecting cards. They would go to the store. They would buy booster packs. I remember pulling my first ever Charizard. I remember going to Walmart. I remember buying a base 2-pack. I didn't pull one in original base set. I wasn't collecting in the original base set, but I remember buying a base set 2-pack that was at Walmart. It was when they had them on basically like clearance because nobody was buying Pokemon cards anymore at the time. And I remember grabbing a pack, going home, opening it up, and there it was, my first ever Charizard. I remember that feeling of euphoria and how great it was. I didn't worry about sleeving cards. I loved the idea of collecting Pokemon cards, and I really wanted one day to open up my own store, my own card store, and it would have been sports cards, it would have been trading cards. I was collecting all these different cards throughout the years, Dragon Ball Z and Digimon and Yu Yu Hakusho and Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the main focus was Pokemon cards because I loved Pokemon cards. I would literally take, you know, those sleeve protectors, those pages that you would have in a 3-ring binder. Obviously, we don't do that anymore. We don't put them in 3-ring binders anymore. I literally would sticky tack those to my wall in my bedroom and fill them up with different holographic cards. I didn't have many holographic cards, so then it would be different rare cards or different uncommon cards that I like the artwork of, and it was just so different back then than what it is now. And if we look and start dissecting all of the information that has come throughout the years, things have changed. And there's been so much talk lately about all the buyouts and the manipulation in the market and how frustrating it is, and I think that's what kind of cued me to try and make this video of like talking about where we were, where we are now, and why it's okay, why it's all going to be okay, because we don't know where we're going to be 5 years down the road. We don't know where we're going to be 10 years down the road. What we do know is that Pokemon card collecting has always been extremely cyclical. It's gone all over the place. We've had ups, we've had downs. Last year we had a major down. It was at a point where there was just overproduction all over the place, left and right, so much product being pushed out, and we had all these alternate arts that were crashing, literally crashing, going down double-digit percentages every single month. And now it seems like everything has changed over the past few weeks. We have seen double-digit growth all over the place with a bunch of different hard-to-pull cards. And we're going to talk about pull rates a little bit. We're going to talk about Pokemon card collecting and how it's changed in this video. But I want to give a shout out to Malachi in the Discord. If you're not a member of the Discord, there is a link in the description down below. Highly recommend checking it out. But he posted a snip of the sheet that you see, the page that you see on the right-hand side. So it's got the Blastoise, it's got the Gold Star Charizard. He posted that. And then I wanted to kind of Google search and look for other ones. So the one on the right side, I believe is from 2009. This is Beckett's Pokemon card hot list. And on the left side, I believe is from 2008. So obviously a little bit different. You had old school EXs on the 2008 page on the left side, and you have even Gold Star cards on the right side. You have that Power Keepers Charizard, you have the Leafeon and the Garchomp LVX, you have the Raichu and the Mesprit and the Claydol. The Claydol was so big in competitive play. You have the Legend Maker Mew EX, you have the Shiny Voltorb, the Charizard EX. The big difference is the price points. And we did not collect back then as what we do now. We did not have all this information, all this data that people were gathering left and right, talking about price trends and talking about what the potential is for these cards and for these sets moving forward. We didn't even sleeve our cards, right? We just put them in a binder or just put them in a shoebox, and that's basically what we did. We have changed so much. But if you look at the price points on these cards, these hard to pull cards, It's crazy. You look at your target price range for the Charizard Gold Star right there is $25 to $42. $25 to $42. So in 2009, you were paying $25 to $42 for a Gold Star. What is Charizard Gold Star at now? Like, it is way more expensive, especially if you can find a near mint copy of it, because it is so rare. The population report is so much lower for a Charizard Gold Star to get in a PSA 10 or a PSA 9. A lot of people don't even send them in because they're just beat. They were heavily played. They were played with. It's changed. It's so different now. That Charizard EX from Fire Red, Leaf Green, your target price range $90 to $150. The Legend Maker Mew EX $20 to $32. Your Claydol $16. Prices are much different. Even the Power Keepers Charizard selling for $9 to $15 back in 2009 compared to what they're selling for today. And you're like, well, they were so much harder to pull. No, they weren't. Like the Gold Star cards back then was 1 out of every 2 booster boxes. That's better pull rates than what you see from even these alternate art VMAXs. So then what we've tried to do is we've tried to analyze and calculate and estimate how many alternate art VMAXs are in existence now compared to what there was back then. And print numbers are always just so screwed up from Pokemon, because Wizards of the Coast didn't post any of them. They didn't care about them. They didn't think Pokemon was going to take off the way that it did. So before Wizards of the Coast sold off to Nintendo, they did not calculate and to keep track of anything when it comes to print numbers. They used to do it for like Magic the Gathering, but even in 1995 or so, they stopped tracking print numbers for Magic the Gathering. And then you switch over to Nintendo when they started circulating Pokemon cards, and they started tracking somewhat print numbers and how many cards were put into existence. But over the years, we have graduated to all these different products. Think of how many products there are now than there were in 2008 and 2009. It is so different now because you have all these collection boxes, all these tins, all these battle academies and starter decks and 3-pack blisters and booster bundles, and at one point in time build and battle stadiums and all these cards to try and meet demand. Whereas back then you didn't have any of that. You didn't get tins until later on in like Diamond and Pearl. Like that's when tins really started becoming a thing. Collection boxes didn't really exist. You bought booster packs, right? In the early 2000s, you went to the store and you bought booster packs. You may have found like some weird collection boxes that they had at Sam's Club or Toys R Us or Costco that had like these weird starter decks in it or whatever, but those were bundled secondhand. Like they weren't produced by Pokemon, and it's just so different now than what it was back then. Here is a snip. I put this out on Twitter yesterday. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Danny__O. This is my website. So this is our website. This is the cardcoliseum.com. This is the back office, okay? This is the alternate art Latias and Latios from Team Up. So this card has not been updated since 2019, which is when Team Up originally came out. I remember opening up the set. We had our Pokemon card store at the time, and we were pulling. We opened up Team Up because we wanted to pull Jirachis, we wanted to pull Zapdos, we wanted to pull the rare Charizards. Those were the cards that were worth money. That Jirachi Hollow with Stellar Guidance or Stellar Wish or whatever the ability is, that was a $30 card right out of the gate because it was such a playable card. People wanted it in their decks. They needed 4 copies of it. It was so important to the meta. We weren't focusing on the alternates. They were cool. They were super cool to look at. $25.99 was a big price point in 2019. That was a big price for an ultra rare Pokemon card. That was a very expensive price point that we didn't hit very often. So we listed them at $25.99. We had some in stock. They sold. Then we probably found some more that we got either in trades or people who sold their cards to us, and we probably kept it at $25.99 and then it sold. What price point is this at now? Like, we have not had more in stock to sell, so the price has just never been updated. So when I was updating inventory on the website yesterday, I was like, I wonder what I typed in Latias because I was looking at the one from Crown Zenith because I had Crown Zenith copies I needed to add to the website. And then I stumbled across this one. I was like, oh yeah, well, I forgot. What did we have this at? When it first came out, it was $25.99. Like, that is crazy to think about. When last year, when the alternate arts from the Sun and Moon era just exploded in price, they had jumped up to $700-800 a piece for Latias and Latios. $25.99 back in 2019. That just goes to show you how things are so different over the past couple of years, how much things have changed. No different than what we looked at with that snip that we just checked out showing 2009 trying to buy Charizard Gold Stars for $42 because that was the price point back then. It's absolutely crazy. If we talk about pull rates, if we talk about print quality, if we talk about the amount of copies of a card that are in existence, let's go back to the original base set, for example. So here is the big boy from the original base set when Wizards of the Coast printed and produced Pokemon cards. So this is Charizard, the holographic rare. If we talk about pull rates and how pull rates have changed over there, you used to get 12 hits in a booster box on average. Sometimes you could get more. You could get as high as 14 holographic cards in your booster box of base set. You could get less, but average was going to be 12. And most of the time, you were going to pull one of these. You were going to pull one of these Charizards, maybe even two, but for sure one in your base set booster box because there was only 16 holographic cards in your set. Nowadays, Evolving Skies, Chilling Reign, you got 7.9, 7.8 hits per booster box, so less than 8 ultra rares per booster box, and there was over 100 ultra rares. So back then, base set, the amount of cards that produced, the amount of cards that were printed, probably less than where we're at now. Probably less Wizards of the Coast cards that were in existence for base set than there are now. I think we can all agree on that. But when it comes to copies of the rarer cards, the harder to pull cards like Charizard, there would have been a lot more compared to the amount of stuff that's been printed because they were so much easier to pull. Because every booster box, you basically opened up 2 booster boxes and you had a master set. However, at the top, you can see the PSA population report, and it's so different now than what it was back then. So you have 472 copies of this card in PSA 10. First of all, it's a tough card to grade because it's Wizard of the Coast, like it just printed differently. The holofoil scratched really easily, and obviously, we talked about this earlier in the video, we didn't take care of cards the way that we do now. 57,230 cards that have been graded. So that's a lot of cards. That's a lot more than what we see for modern cards nowadays, or double what we see for a lot of them, 57,000. However, only 472 PSA 10s. If you look at what the PSA 10 is going for, now I couldn't really find a sold copy on eBay. The closest I could find was a pristine 10, which is $8,655. So you could probably compare that to a PSA 10, a little bit less than that. We'll say $8,000, somewhere around that category or that price point for a PSA 10 Charizard from the base set, which is crazy to think about. Near mint raw copies still selling for $375, $370. So this is way different than what it is nowadays. When we talk about the Umbreon VMAX, which we'll talk about in a second here are pull rates now. Here are pull rates from the Sword and Shield era now. Now the Sword and Shield era, that is what's going nuts. That is what is going up like crazy. We saw this with Sun and Moon. Now we're seeing it with Sword and Shield, where a lot of alternate arts, a lot of those harder to pull cards are going crazy, like the Umbreon VMAX, the Celebi V, the Machamp V, the Rayquaza VMAX, like what you name an alternate art, it's probably going up right now, except maybe poor Sandaconda or Conkeldurr. Those just aren't I don't know if they're ever going to see this giant increase. But so this is all pulled by us. This is all data that was compiled by us. These are all packs that were opened by us. In total for the Sword and Shield block, we opened up 15,264 booster packs of Pokemon cards from the Sword and Shield block. That's 424 booster boxes. Your average hits per box was 8. Average hits for... Now, that's not including the Trainer Gallery cards. That's not including the Radiant cards. It's not including any of those extra cards that you got in Crown Zenith, the Galarian Gallery. This is just your actual hits. So your regular arts, your full arts, your Rainbow Rares, your Gold cards, your alternate arts, all that 8 per booster box. So that was the pull rate for the Sword and Shield block. Your average VMAX per box was just under 1. Average V-Star per box was just over 1. Average full arts per box was just under 1. And then we get to your average alternate arts. So this is just your regular alternate arts, which have a different rarity than the VMAX cards. So your Giratina V, your Umbreon V, your Espeon V, all the Evolutions Vs, and then also like the Blissey V and the Tornadus V and some of the cheaper alternate arts. 1 out of every roughly 4 booster boxes, you're going to pull an alternate art. So it takes you about 150 packs in order to give yourself an alternate art in the Sword and Shield era. Your Rainbow Rares, your full art trainers, I'll let you look at that on your own if you so want. But your average secret alternate arts per box, much worse. 0.14 per booster box, 258 packs. So about 7 boxes it's going to take you to open up 1 alternate art VMAX. So if you're chasing Evolving Skies, or you're chasing Fusion Strike, and you want to get that Gengar VMAX, or you want to get that Espeon VMAX, you're going to have to open up 278 packs, or 258 packs to pull one. Could be the Inteleon VMAX, which unfortunately is probably not the one that you're chasing, but that should get you an alternate art VMAX. So if we break this down just for Evolving Skies, so I continued taking the pull rates over here, and then I calculated all of the alternate arts, just the VMAXs from Evolving Skies. So we've got 7 different alternate art VMAXs in Evolving Skies: the Leafeon, Glaceon, Sylveon, Umbreon, Rayquaza, and Duraludon. So trying to compare pull rates now and how rare a card is compared to what they were in the Wizards of the Coast era, to try and calculate, okay, where are we now? Where are we going now? It's extremely difficult. Do these price points that we're getting to, are they worth it? Are you talking about $750 for an Umbreon VMAX? Is that worth it when you're looking at over 10,000 of them already being graded in a PSA 10, which is absolutely crazy? And you're trying to figure out, okay, well, 10 years down the road, what does that look like as far as value goes if I'm trying to compare it to where Charizard was from 2000 to 2010? Like, it's just so different nowadays than what it was back then. If you want to pull a specific alternate art VMAX, and if you pull perfectly, you're looking at 1,572 booster packs in order to pull a specific alternate art VMAX. So if you open up 1,572 booster packs and pull perfectly, we're talking no duplicates when it comes to these alternate art VMAXs, you should have a master set at that point in time. That's a lot of booster packs. That's a lot of Evolving Skies booster packs. However, variance plays a huge factor. We've talked about batching before. That's a whole different conversation for a different video, but you're probably going to pull duplicates. You're probably going to pull a second copy of that Duraludon VMAX before you pull the Glaceon, or you might pull a second copy of that Umbreon VMAX before you pull that Leafeon VMAX. So 1,572 booster packs just to pull all of them if you pull perfectly. How does that break down? So if we look at the population report for Umbreon VMAX, there are 10,844 PSA 10s in existence. That's a lot. Remember, when we looked at Charizard before, there was only 472. If you look at the total amount graded, there's 14,408 copies that have been graded, which is absolutely insane. If you this is just PSA, remember, this is not, we're not looking at BGS, we're not looking at CGC, we're not looking at the 5 billion other grading companies that have turned up and started existing, and we're not looking at any near mint raw copies. So we're just looking at 14,408 copies based off of pull rate data. That means 22,649,376 booster packs of Evolving Skies would have need to be opened in order to obtain 14,408 copies. That's a lot. That's a lot of Evolving Skies that have been in existence. This is the equivalency of 629,149 booster boxes being opened. Obviously, 10 cards per booster pack. You open up 36 booster packs in a booster box. Obviously, a lot of these were opened up maybe in collection boxes or sleeve boosters or whatever the case may be, but this is the equivalency of 629,149 booster boxes. And that's not even people, like that. Those are just boxes that are open. Imagine how many boxes are still kept sealed. And we'll talk about that in just a minute here. But when we're looking at print numbers to see how likely this is, between, or as of March 2023, over 52.9 billion Pokemon cards were printed. 52.9. Now, 14 different languages, 89 different countries and regions. That's a lot. So there's going to be separated, but obviously they're going to print the most in English. That's the biggest consumer. That's your biggest market. So there's going to be a lot that are dedicated to just English cards. And again, we do have a lot of ancillary products that are out there, a lot of battle academies. I mean, we don't know if this number means nothing. Like, this number means nothing. Well, does this include code cards? Does this include energy cards? Does this include the little trainer tips cards that you put into build and battle boxes or whatever the case may be? What defines a card? Because it doesn't specify Pokemon cards, it just specifies cards. So what does that define? Are we talking energy cards also? Like, what does that all mean? But what that does mean is that you're talking about over 9 billion cards that were printed in 2023. Now, we should get the next number as of March 2024 fairly soon, and that'll give us a fair amount of idea if they scale back, which we assume they are based on print runs and based on numbers that we've had. But that's an insane amount of cards. Now, you know that there's going to be reprints, so there was was reprints, that would be calculated with that. So maybe some Rebel Clash numbers are in there, and Darkness Ablaze numbers are in there, and Vivid Voltage numbers are in there. But the bulk of that is going to be all the back half of Sword and Shield. We're talking Lost Origin, Evolving Skies, Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign. Like, the bulk of that is going to fall into Evolving Skies and Demand, because those are the cards that they would have printed the most. 9 billion cards is a lot, but when you factor in that 22 million packs have been opened, 22.5 million packs of Evolving Skies were open, well, how many does that mean are still remaining? And if you're looking at billions instead of just millions, that's a lot. There's a lot that is still out there, but that just goes to show you how different things are now from where they were back then. You can make your own assumptions from it all. You can try and understand where everything is going, and partially it's fun to look at, and it's a lot of entertainment to look at and try and theorize and guesstimate how many cards are out there, how many alternate arts are out there. But one thing's for certain, we are in a completely different era of collecting now than when we were as kids, when we were in the early 2000s. Things are different now. We look at, a lot of people look at this as more of money. A lot of people look at this more as value versus just collecting cool artwork versus maybe pulling some cards for the competitive game. The competitive game back in the early 2000s was not popular at all. If we're talking about like the 2004, 2005, somewhere around there, really not popular at all until you graduate and you move forward. And nowadays, we're talking about 23, 24, 2,500 people, masters, just going to an event. You're talking about 3,000 players going to a regional tournament. Local leagues are filling up. League cups are selling out. Like, competitive play is also growing quite a bit, but the market in general is completely different than where it was back then. So is this something that's sustainable? I don't know. And frankly, nobody does. Anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen 10, 15 years down the road, there's no possible way that they can know, because we don't know where the market is going to be. If you would have told me in the year 2000, hey, Fanny, this is where you're going to be in 24 years, this is how the market is going to look, I would have never even considered that to be an option. Never would have even thought it possible. But now we're talking about people coming in and storing sealed. We didn't collect sealed 24 years ago. It just didn't happen. You opened up the packs. That's what you did. And I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way to collect. Like, I'm not going to gatekeep anybody. If you want to come in here and you want to buy a case of Evolving Skies on release and you want to put it in a closet and you want to forget about it for 10 years, go nuts. That's you. You do you. Like, make yourself happy. Whatever makes you happy in this hobby, that's what you should do. But I do think that it's important that we don't get frustrated as collectors or as people who enjoy the hobby about what everybody else is doing. I don't think that that's a good thing to do, because then you are going to get frustrated with the hobby and you're probably going to quit, you're going to leave, you're going to get mad, and you're going to move on. And that's why it's so important not to only talk about the financial side of things and not only talk about the money side of things, and talk about the stuff that you do have that does have potential. We've talked about that a lot recently. We've talked about a lot of different things that you probably have lying around that you can utilize to kind of help get you to where you want to be. If you want an Umbreon VMAX, like, build up to it. You see these trade-up challenges all over the place. All these trade-up challenges where people will go to a Collecticon or they'll go to an event and they'll start out with, a common rufflet, like just a common card, an uncommon card, and they'll try to trade it up to an Umbreon VMAX. And you see this documentation of what happened over the span of 3 days to make that happen. You can do that at home and just do it a lot more methodically, like a lot slower. Like, there are cards out there in your collection right now, I guarantee you, that you don't need anymore or want anymore. Like, if you have Buddy Poffins lying around, if you have Jet Energies lying around, if you have extra Prime Catchers lying around, like, you can move those to storefronts, you can get store credit, you can get cash, and you can put that in a special piggy bank that you are reserving only for that alternate art Umbreon VMAX. Like, we have Indianapolis Regionals that we're going to be vending next month, or in 2 weeks. So right now, looking for a lot of staples for stores that are vending those is really important. Finding cards like Jet Energy, finding cards like Buddy Poffin, finding cards like Prime Catcher is important, so that we can provide the player base with those cards to build their decks, which is going to help you as a collector who maybe doesn't play, start banking, start trading up, start getting to the point where you're going to be able to capitalize and find those Umbreon. The chase is really part of the fun, like enjoying the chase, and I think that's what gets overlooked, and that's what gets talked out. Like, we don't think about that when we're looking at, oh, the Celebi V is being pumped right now. It might be, and that stinks. Like, that's unfortunate, because maybe you didn't have the finances at the time to buy that Celebi V, and I get that, but we don't know where the market is going to be in 5 years. So right now, if the Celebi V is the most important card to you, like, just start banking it up, start trading up to it. And if you get to a point where you're like, well, it's not worth it to me, then move on to something else. But you can set your your goals and you can work towards them. We talk about how things have changed. So this, I'm sure you guys have all seen this GIF that's on the left-hand side here of this guy, this kid. This was 20 years ago, right? Where he opens up the Blastoise on Christmas morning, and then I think this other kid opens up, I don't know, I can't even remember because it's not as big as how the reaction is of this kid. But this is what we were feeling. This is that euphoria that we were talking about before. And nowadays, on the right-hand side, it's completely different. Like we had Logan Paul do that case break. Obviously, he purchased that Illustrator, and there's all this nonsense, all this crazy stuff going on with scamming and all these things, that bad noise, right? Bad noise in the hobby, which takes away the fun of it, and that's what's unfortunate. But trying to avoid focusing on that. When you talk about nowadays, sadly, I mean, I guess not sadly, but differently, the market is just filled with everybody. Like, it is not just filled with people on the left-hand side anymore. And that's okay. Like, that's just how it is. It might irk you, and I get it, but at the same time, that's where we are now. We are at the point now where you have a lot of people who have no interest in Pokemon whatsoever, who have bought a bunch of boxes, who have stored a bunch of boxes, and who one day will sell those boxes, and they have no idea what's even inside. You have people from different businesses who saw the potential of Pokemon because of everything that went on during the pandemic, because of all these news articles and Logan Paul and all these websites and Logic and everything that went on. So they were like, well, I'm just going to buy, 6, 7, 8 cases of every set, and I'm going to put them in a storage unit, and I'm going to leave them there for 5-10 years and watch them grow. So they've got 8 to 10 cases of Lost Origin, of Evolving Skies, of Chilling Reign that they just kind of put away because they had the money to do that. So that's what they decided to do. That's a different part of the hobby, but that's just what's changed, and that's where we are now. And the best thing that you can do as a collector is just be like, that's okay. It's unfortunate, but I'm not going to let that deter me or prevent me from accomplishing my collection goals and doing what it is that I want to do, and finding the cards that I want to find, and playing the game and enjoying the hobby. There's so much good in the hobby. There's so much good with the community. I would say, 95% of the community is just full of amazing people. But when we focus so much on the buyouts and manipulation, I don't want to say we shouldn't talk about it, because it is important to talk about. It is important to address. It is important because I think when stuff that happens is unfortunate, it needs attention, so that way you can help rectify the issue quicker. But at the same time, you don't want to let it steal your happiness. You don't want to let other people's actions ever have control over your emotions, have control over you, because then you are just giving the power to somebody else. And you are not going to enjoy the hobby if you give the power to somebody else. So while there's a lot of noise going on out there, at the end of the day, Pokemon cares about keeping the doors open. Pokemon cares about making money. Pokemon cares about what a business, unfortunately, should care about, especially a business the size of Pokemon. They've got thousands of employees. They're the biggest media franchise in the world. They're going to care about growing their brand, growing their game, and unfortunately, they can't regulate everybody who's allowed to come in the hobby. So this is where we're at right now. Is it going to change? It might. It might change at the end of 2000. When EX era started and we moved into Diamond and Pearl, the game saw a huge decline, where a lot of people jumped out of the game. A lot of people jumped out of collecting. A lot of people jumped out of the hobby. You might see 5-6 years down the road where we see a huge step back. We already see sealed product being way cheaper with the Scarlet and Violet era. You might see a giant decrease in competitive play, and then in 15-20 years, you might see this all ramp back up again. And the best thing that you can do right now for yourself is not get frustrated and just keep moving forward. Keep pushing forward, so that way you don't exit the hobby. Because if you truly love it and you're truly passionate about it, focusing on that is really the best thing that you can do. And then 10-15 years down the road, you might really thank yourself for not getting out of the decisions that you made. And unfortunately, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but it's food for thought that it's really important to not let other people's actions and not let other people control you. And I think that's really the main thing that I want to impress upon you. And I wanted to try and show some data that indicates, okay, well, how rare are cards now compared to how they were back then? And obviously we saw that graph with the with the Charizard Gold Star right there selling for $40. Like that was the price point that you were looking at. And then you compare that to today with like an equal chase card as the Umbreon VMAX selling for $700. Like it's different now. Things are just so different now. So focusing on that, obviously times have changed a lot. And that's, I don't know. Like I said, I don't even know where this video is going. I just wanted to provide a lot of good information out there and why it's important to stay calm and just carry on, keep moving forward. And we can do that together. So I hope you like the information. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the video. This isn't supposed to be a serious video. This is just a fun video talking about what's so great. This hobby is great and this hobby is fantastic. And now I'm just rambling. But you don't want to give other people the power. Like, I guess that was just the main theme of everything. Just, it's fun to look at the data. It's fun to look at all the information. But at the end of the day, let's focus on your goals and let's achieve those together. Love you guys. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I'll talk to you again soon. Until next time, peace.